by setting your price, you're picking a particular business model. The rule of 1/3 is a tool that I've used to determine how healthy an agency is. And it works for freelancers also. If the cost of your business is greater than 1/3, you definitely have some major issues. Hey, welcome to another episode of The Monetize. I'm your host, Tim Conley, and I'm here with my good friend and co-host, Pedro Moreno. What's up, brother?
I'm doing fine, Tim. Now caffeinated and ready to go.
Oh, nice. So maybe we'll get you a little like as hyper as me during these episodes.
Yeah.
So we are going to talk about something people get wrong a lot, and that's pricing.
Me included.
Pricing it's crazy because there's literally volumes of books on how to price. There's millions of blog posts about pricing. There's thousands of podcast episodes about pricing, and people still panic over how to set a price for their product or their service. And it's not that complicated. I think the real issue is that it's emotional. Picking your price is more emotional than anything else. And we'll get into that because I really want to dive into that part of it. But pricing is something that we really need to nail early to be able to set up the business to get the kind of business that we really desire.
Yeah, well, the backstory that we have, I think pricing for me, it has been one of the toughest parts of being first a freelancer and then an agency owner, because the business that I had was all reliant on the prices that I had set up as a freelancer and failed to make the switch and to price properly, to sustain a team, and to be able to think about the business and not be so in the business itself. And
right,
that set me up to essentially like a failed business projection, if you will. And it was all because of how I priced.
Yeah, that's the thing is when you're a freelancer, and I guess this is major point number one. If we have multiple points, I have no idea if we do.
Maybe we'll figure it out.
Yeah, maybe I don't know. We'll make up points. Okay, so we'll call this one point number one.
Okay.
Is that your price is a business model. By setting your price, you're picking a particular business model. Which determines what segment of the market you're going after, whether it's low, medium, or high. If the price you pick determines kind of the quality of customer that you're going to get.
Yes.
Pricing determines a bunch of other things inside your business, the mechanics of your business. And I don't want to just dive like into everything right up front, but let's just talk about the freelance side of it. Is you picked an hourly rate, which makes sense. It's like I'm working by myself. Here's my hourly rate, and you were on Upwork. That's where I first hired you. Was on Upwork to do some video editing.
Yeah,
and the price you were asking it's like, okay, that's a decent amount of money for just straight video editing. It turned out to be a lot more complicated and a lot more hours you had to put in to do the kind of editing that I was after.
Right.
But the issue was you pick an hourly rate based on what I want to pay myself and not how to run a business.
Yes.
So when let's just throw out like some Upwork number of like $25 an hour.
Yep.
So you're charging like $25 an hour, and that means you have to live on essentially 1/3 of that.
Yes.
On an hourly rate. If you wish to actually build a company, you have to be able to pay all your bills and pay the company's bills, continue to grow, have a profit, all that stuff has to come out of that $25. And a lot of people are like, that's not possible. I can't do that. Like I got to pay rent. I've got to buy groceries. All these expenses. There's no way I can do that. I need the $25 just to be able to pay for my life, which means your hourly rate needs to be significantly higher because it's got to pay for you. It's got to pay for your company expenses, and it's got to leave a profit. Even if it's a modest profit of like, say, 10%, it's got to leave a profit at the end of the day. And if you price wrong, you don't get a profit. If you price wrong, you don't get to pay yourself what you want. And then the one key thing is the business itself eats up most of the money that you're getting paid.
Yeah, and that was really tough for me because when, at least in my experience, when you're just getting into Upwork, as you've said in other episodes, you sort of see the competitive landscape, if we will, and you pick the middle point, essentially. Like, okay, well, I value myself higher than, I don't know, $5-10 an hour, but not as much as 120, because, well, say that's not my self-worth, if you will. And then I'd chosen, like, around 25. But then I picked up so many clients that I wasn't able to deliver on all of them. And I wasn't savvy enough to maybe seek proper information on what the actual pricing structure of an agency, of a company should be, even for myself when I was just a solo practitioner, essentially. Because there you said something that completely changed my mind when you first pointed out to me, which is that third of the price, essentially. If
Yep.
there's like that
I call
multiple.
I call it the rule of 1/3.
Okay.
The rule of 1/3 is just a tool that I've used to determine how healthy an agency is. And it works for freelancers also. So 1/3 goes to labor, the labor it takes to fulfill for your customers. Then you have 1/3 for your business. That would include marketing, advertising, software, equipment, and ancillary everything else, like administrative and everything. It's covered in that. Then which includes your own salary, and
Which is different.
both as
Yeah.
so
Which
your
is a
own
different
salary,
thing.
including in 1/3, a part of 1/3 is your salary for doing any labor you're doing for your clients.
Right.
And then in the other 1/3, part of your salary is for the management that you're doing.
Right.
Right. So those things have to come out of the first 2/3 of the business. Then the final 1/3 is your profit. And a lot of agencies don't achieve 33% net income. And from what I've seen, it's mostly because they don't plan for it. They don't plan to be able to make that kind of profit. They just pay all the bills and figure out what's left over at the end. And I like to structure the business 1/3, 1/3, and 1/3. And sure, there might be some movement either way. You might come out to just 25% net income at the end of the year, and more money went to labor or more money went to marketing or something like that. It's possible that that can happen. But if you set these targets to see just how healthy is my business,
Yeah.
and if your labor is significantly above 1/3, then you've got an issue. If the cost of your business is greater than 1/3, you definitely have some major issues.
Yeah. So
Right?
in my case, for example, I was nowhere near of that 1/3, and that word that stings, which is like health, in the context of a healthy business, I think
Yes.
it is so hard to hear, and to also even ask yourself, like, is your business healthy? and then are you healthy because of it?
Right. Well, yeah, that's a bit of a tangent though, is a healthy business makes it easier to be healthy as the entrepreneur.
Yeah,
If
absolutely.
the business isn't healthy, like you're stressed out, your cortisol levels are through the roof.
Yeah.
You're working crazy hours. Your life becomes all about the business. And I know this for a fact because I lived it
Yeah.
in my life where I didn't have a healthy business and I had to pour all my health into it to save it and to grow it, which is not the way you should be doing things.
But okay, I'm going to work X amount of hours, that then this hourly rate pays me, but I had really
Mhm.
no projection of like, yeah, I'm paying myself, if you will, like for my labor, and then I I didn't have like that mindset of, okay, this is my labor, and then this is profit, and this is planning for, I don't know, equipment, that type of overhead as well, let alone marketing, let alone like a junior, in my case, editor, that I could pass on other projects that I wasn't able to fulfill. So that pricing, at least for the hourly rate for myself, was very harmful. And then I switched to project based, which I think might be like our second point.
Switching to over to a project pricing is pretty common. A lot of agencies do project pricing. They step away from an hourly rate, and this is also part of this business model. Like, what kind of business model are you going for? A project base requires a lot of planning ahead of time.
Yeah.
Hourly, you don't need any planning really. It's like we just start working and I get paid to figure it out as we're going along.
Right.
But if you're charging in a project fee, then you have to know what are we going to do, because I have to figure out how much is it going to cost
Yeah.
and how am I going to make a profit out of this? And what happens if things go wrong? What if things go out of scope? All these other factors have to come into play, and it determines the kind of business that you can build. The nice thing about a project fee is that it's not based on time anymore. Internally, inside the business, you still have to watch all the hours because you have to keep control of your costs because you have a cap as to how much money you're going to be able to earn in that project.
Right.
So your goal is to implement this project with the least number of hours possible,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And this is like really the first step in building a real company is moving over into a project fee where you make a lot of planning with the client. Hopefully you're getting paid for that planning. That's
Yeah.
very important. Yeah, most people don't do that either.
Right.
Doing the planning and then trying to execute without letting the client introduce a ton of scope creep.
Right. Yeah. That for me, it actually helped change my mindset in regards of what my business looked like, because I started having conversations like, well, if the project goes well over the hours that I had expected, that's on me. But if it also goes under the hours that I had expected because I developed systems that made me more efficient, well, that's on me as well. Like I'm able to then reward myself for my efficiency, uh,
Right.
effectively. Because if not, even with that, with a higher hourly rate, I was still sort of like constrained to, oh yeah, I'm going to track the hours that I'm working, and I don't know, it just, at least for me, it felt a little bit off. But instead, if I could actually build for a project, in my case, like specific podcast episodes and the package that came with it, I am now packaging with podcasts seasons, then it lets me have like a better projection of like what that price structure is, and that rule of thirds that you talked about, where the actual profit is baked in, the actual project management, the account, managing, if we will, as well, like all of those hours not accounting for, where I'm handling the client, I am handling my team as well, and that I don't really have to worry about me tracking because I know that that is essentially covered since I moved into that type of pricing as well.
Right, right. Then it just becomes about managing your team,
Right.
managing the systems that your team follows, as opposed to trying to figure out how to deliver for your client without billing too many hours and making them upset, but also getting paid a decent amount of money for the fact that you just solved a big problem for them. That's one of the biggest problems with hourly, is that it doesn't reward you for being good at your job.
Yeah.
The only way you can get rewarded for being good at your job in an hourly rate is to be able to increase your rates. But the problem is, at some point, your hourly rate leaves the market that you're in.
Hmm.
And it does it, and project fees do this too. So if you set a certain fee and that fee is comfortably paid for by a segment of your market, then when you try to charge more money than that market will comfortably pay, or a segment of that market will comfortably pay, then they stop saying yes. They drop you as their provider because you have just now exceeded what they feel is a fair price for what you do.
Right. And then your business essentially changes as well. Like
Yes.
the clients that you have change, the scope of the projects change as well, and then you find yourself at this point where you maybe have to drop those clients and maybe apply some different tactics to approach bigger, more interesting clients as well, because you have now leveled up essentially, right?
Right, right. I call it stacking,
Yeah,
where
the famous client stacking.
yeah. So you find your first stack, and when everybody starts a service business, they move in. They're like, okay, this is my fee. I've set this. I feel comfortable here, and they go out and they get a few clients.
Yeah.
Most of them continue to get clients above and beyond the part where they should have stopped. So for me, I say a stack should be 4 clients.
Yep.
Maybe you could go 5, but 4 clients is enough for a single stack. So if you're charging $10,000 a project, you go get 4 clients, you got 40 grand. This is your first stack. After that, you should go looking for the next stack. Maybe that's $15,000 a project. Maybe you feel like, wow, I really know what I'm doing here. I could charge, 4 times the amount that I'm charging right now and go from 10,000 to 40,000 and go find the clients who would pay $40,000 for this project. And that becomes your next stack. At some point, you get to a spot where you go, well, I could go up another stack, but that puts me into a business model I don't want to do. That was me.
Right.
I entered, when I started my advertising agency, I went after the corporate clients and I built my initial stack of clients, and I hated it. Like I hated all the bureaucracy, all the meetings. All I wanted to do was create amazing advertising. Like I just wanted to do cool work.
Yeah.
And instead, I'm sitting in board meetings trying to convince everybody who's wearing a suit that we should be doing what I say we should be doing, and trying to convince them that what they want to do would be bad for their brand. And I was like, oh, this is terrible. I hate doing this. So then I found that the next segment down, those people that I would get, they were fantastic to work with. They had the budgets. They didn't have all the bureaucracy. They were eager to do something cool and creative. And I'm like, okay, that's my segment. I don't need this stack. I found the stack that I'm after. And I found what that group of people were willing to pay for what I could do. Sure, I could have charged more money if I wanted to go back to that other business model, serving those much larger corporate clients that had big bureaucracies.
Right.
I could have done that. I just didn't like doing it. And that's one of the cool things about figuring out your business model based on your pricing is you get to pick who you want to work with based on how you charge for it.
Yeah. And also one thing that I like from that approach is that you're not, say, quote unquote, growing for the sake of growing, but you're actually being very intentional about the people that you're working with as well. And I think that falls really within the intent of this podcast to be, well, very intentional also with the type of businesses that we are building and for them to serve the life that we want, essentially, right?
Right. Yeah, because if you price wrong, you can't afford to build a company that you would like to work at.
Yeah.
You got to remember, you're an entrepreneur. You still have a job. You work for your company. And if you don't price right, you can't afford to build the kind of company that you personally would like to work at. And you can't buy cool office furniture. You can't buy the latest MacBook Pro. You can't buy, there's so many things you can't do if you price wrong. You can't hire the best people because you don't have the money for it. You can't do so many things that make business really enjoyable because you're not charging enough to be able to afford it.
Yeah, no doubt. So Tim, our next, let's call it our next point is retainers. And this one is a little bit foreign for me because it is one that I haven't, in my process at least, haven't really figured out how to bake into the services that we have. So maybe you can help me out understanding it a little bit more.
Okay. In our notes for, letting everybody in behind the scenes, in our notes, we were like, hey, let's talk about pricing. And I use the word retainer specifically because there's this really cool name called Productize. Productize services, all the rage. A great book, Built to Sell by John Warrillow. I think that's how it's pronounced. Great book. Really give you interesting ideas on systematizing your business. And he gave it a really good name, a good marketing name called Productize. And I use retainer because retainers are old. People can base their businesses on the type of work that is best served through a retainer. In productized service, the idea is that literally any service can be productized. That's not true. It can be systemized, but a lot of services are very custom and only work really well when custom. And that's why a retainer would be a better solution than trying to follow the marketing term of productized service. And I know I'm a little pedantic about this. Like I get really bent out of shape over this whole idea. But the retainer, the issue is a lot of people want to have a retainer. They want a monthly, they want a monthly, a weekly, a quarterly, annually payment from their client. And they try to stuff services that are not recurring into a recurring payment.
Okay.
So the first thing to determine is the service that we're doing actually recurring? So in the case of Lumen,
right,
you have podcast editing.
Yeah.
Well, well, more than editing, the production, the editing, like all the prep, getting the clients, there's stuff that happens for every single episode.
Indeed.
Well, as long as there's additional episodes, it's recurring.
Right.
So literally every service related to that is a recurring service.
Right.
That's easy to define.
Yep.
But then what if you have something that, in the case of, say, strategy, you could have in your case, we call it pre-production.
Yep.
If you have pre-production, then it's a one-time thing.
Yeah.
We've built the show, we've designed the show, we did the market research, we did all these different things that are required to set up the podcast so that it's a great show to begin with.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That's one time.
Yep.
That part is done. There's no recurring fee in that. So there's no sense in trying to bill a client over time, because you would then have to make up services
Right.
that would fit into that. And you don't need that. What happens is, if people have a service that is not truly recurring, what they do is they end up taking a project fee that they would get paid in either a lump sum right up front, or in large pieces, say 50% to start, and then 25% and 25%, and then they're done.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
In a lot of cases, they take that project and they turn a project that you would get paid in a lump sum into an installment plan.
Right.
And instead of it getting paid to you in the course of a couple of months at most, it gets paid to you over the course of 12 months.
Right.
Except the client can cancel it at any time.
Yeah. And that
Right?
goes against...
It drives me nuts, because it's literally what most people who try to productize end up doing. A lot of people who try to get a retainer for a service that is not retainable end up creating an installment payment plan and not actually get recurring income.
Yeah, it's not the same to have like a recurrent income based on a recurrent service or product instead of a delayed payment, essentially.
Right. Because that's what most people are doing, is that they're just taking they're taking installment payments, and then the client may just decide, okay, 4 months later, I don't want to do this anymore.
Right.
But had you stayed with a project fee, you would have made all that money up front, and then could have moved into actually recurring services from that point on. The client would have been happy because they got what they paid for to begin with.
Yeah.
And now they can decide, do I want you to continually do work for me going forward?
Yeah. Yeah. And actually, well, this sort of difference between a retainer and a delayed installed payment, it goes against the principle of velocity of money as well. Because if you're able, in our case, if we are able to make like a whole season production within a month, for instance, and we get paid for 24 episodes right away, well, then I know that I can count on that money on the very first months of the year, let's say, and then I can go out and plan the rest of the year, essentially. But instead, if I get those payments delayed, then I run the risk also of them saying, okay, well, we've produced 10, and this is just about it because we got bored of it, and it doesn't really suit our goal anymore, and that is indeed very dangerous as well. And also, one principle that you have and that you have been really passionate about me implementing as well is being paid upfront, essentially. So even if you get a retainer for something that makes sense, for something that is I don't want to say, but a productized service or a recurring product at least.
Yes, a recurring service, yeah.
Then you should be paid upfront in advance for that retainer fee, essentially.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, you don't start work until you've been paid.
Well, can you say that one more time, please?
Never start working until you've been paid.
Can we actually make like
and
hats
this
from
goes
that?
into planning.
Yeah.
This goes into planning also. You have a prospect, the sales calls have been going good. They're like, yeah, I'm interested in getting started, and you start working on the plan.
Yeah.
You start getting geared up to
Yeah.
actually serve this account.
Yeah.
You never do this until the money is in your bank account.
Yep.
Not like you sent the invoice, not you sent a payment link, but the money shows up in your bank account. You open up your bank account, you look on the screen, and there's the digits. Then you can go, okay, we can start working now. Never before that.
Do you have in English like a saying for, because I mean it comes to me a Venezuelan saying in Spanish, which is essentially like you do not count the chicks before they hatch.
Yes. Yes.
Essentially.
And so many people do that. They're
Okay,
like,
yeah.
oh yeah, I've got a client, and it's like, no,
Do
you
you?
don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, when your bank account says you have a client, you've got a client, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Now we haven't talked about numbers, and here's a rule that I've had to implement for years, because so many people were coming to me who were freelancers who were trying to be agencies, like they were trying to build a company. And I asked them what their annual value of a client is.
Right.
And it was amazing. Some had an annual value of a client in the hundreds of dollars, and others in the low thousands. And I'm like, you can't afford to do anything at that. So if you have a retainer, I'm going to tell you this, a retainer should not be less than $2,000 a month.
Hmm.
It
Rule of thumb.
like,
Right. Yeah.
yeah, rule of thumb.
Yeah.
And it's for anything. Like if you have a retainer, if it's something simple, like an old school maintenance of a website, like keeping a website up and running. And it's like, well, we're only going to do, probably a few hours of work with this client. It's like, okay, $2,000. And you could, it's like, yeah, we could do this. It'll cost us, we could charge like $200 an hour because our tech can manage it for them. We can charge $200 an hour. So, and whenever, and they'll pay us like 3 hours a month, every month, whether we use those 3 hours or not. It's like, okay, that sounds nice, until you scale, until you've got 40, 50,
Right.
100 of these people on these maintenance contracts.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, it's a real business.
Yeah. It becomes a
that-
business model. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And the crazy part is, it's probably losing money.
Hmm.
It's like, how could we lose money at $200 an hour when our labor only costs us $80 an hour? There's just no way we would lose money. And that's because no one factors in the switching costs. So if you have before you get to 100 of these contracts, you have a small number, and that person who's in charge of this is probably working on other projects.
Yeah.
This is something that I experienced in my own company, was you have to pull somebody off of a higher value service to go do this thing for a low value service. And that switching costs isn't billed for. You're not billing for it. It's not getting taken out. You're losing anywhere from typically 20 minutes on each side of the task.
Yeah.
Is gone. 40 minutes of time, and you end up billing the client for an hour.
Yeah, the minimum.
Maybe it takes an hour. Yeah, but a lot of people don't even do hourly minimum billing.
Right.
They'll do by like maybe 15-minute minimum billing.
Right.
Because they're like, oh yeah, it'll only take us a few minutes, except it just took you 40 minutes of switching costs.
Yeah.
And this scales, like it becomes a problem. Then you end up with like dedicated staff and all this stuff. and you have to turn it into a real company. That's why I say try to avoid anything that's going to be recurring that is less than $2,000 to be able to afford to turn it into a real profit center in your company.
Yeah, and that is also, at least for me and for companies that other friends have, that they're creatives as well. That is something that we don't really account for, which is how taxing it is to put like one team member on, say, 4 different creative projects where they actually have to adapt, change their mind into, okay, what was the need for this client, then this one, and not do like that cookie cutter type of solution, because that wasn't our initial agreement with the client. But
Right.
since you're putting all of this load on top of this team member, that they then have to perform this very creative task, and you're putting like this burden on top of them to maybe, work on 4 different projects within a single day. It is not very easy to just switch.
Right. Large ad agencies do a really good job of this. And a lot of people really need, if they do any kind of creative work for their clients, they really should take a look at how the big agencies do this. Be, and it's expensive. So you have to charge properly to be able to do this, which is have creative time dedicated to the project.
Mm,
Because creative time
yeah,
can be systemized, but somebody has their most creative energy at certain times of the day.
yeah,
Most creatives either are in the morning or in the evening,
right,
but they've got a time where they're able to just like really think about the problem they're trying to solve. So you have to understand that there's creative problem solving, figuring out the plan, figuring out the strategy, and then there's the implementation.
right,
And there's usually a team that's the creative team, and then there's the implementation team.
yep,
So that the implementation team can just sit down and do the things that have already been figured out. And a lot of smaller agencies don't have a big enough team to do that, so they need to allocate a span of time necessary for their team to figure out the creative stuff before they move into the implementation stuff.
yeah,
Because once they get into implementation and they're trying to be creative while implementing,
yep,
all that does is create massive inefficiency
yeah, yeah, and
and
actually,
and stress.
yeah, I'm grinning because I very recently quoted a project where I had those two outlined differently. Like, one thing is strategy, like say the creative strategy, and another one is implementation. So
Yeah.
sort of like a small win on my side, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Nice.
Okay. So
So
moving forward.
let's, point whatever we're at.
Point
I don't
whatever.
know. I'll have to look at our notes. One of the things, we've got like all these different things set out. I think we just dove into this a little too much. But let's get into performance-based and value-based fees.
Yeah.
These are really popular in the guru space. They like to tell you all the time, get value-based pricing or do performance-based pricing.
It's sexy.
And oh yeah, it sounds great, right? Because if I perform well, I will get paid really, really well.
Yep.
The only issue is, and I've had lots of friends and clients who had performance-based fees.
Mm-hmm.
Very few of them have ever been able to have a long-term business based off of it.
Mm.
It's possible. You have to know exactly the service that the client will be happy to pay performance based on.
Right.
Lead generation tends to be one of the few where it's like, I get a lead, it's going to cost me X dollars for that lead. Great. If you can even go all the way to the closing of that lead where you get a percentage of the sale based on what you've brought to the client. Those can work, but ultimately what happens is when a client gets used to paying you, they start thinking, wonder if I could get this same service, but cheaper.
Yeah.
It happens. In every case, I've
In
seen this happen
every
over and over
stage as
again.
well, like no matter how big the ticket and how premium the service is,
Doesn't matter.
it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Everyone eventually starts asking, can I get the exact same thing for less money? That's the biggest issue with performance-based and value-based. One of the other issues with both of those things, performance less so, but value-based, is if you are not already known in your market as the go-to person to do this particular kind of work, and you say, well, here's a value-based fee. If we save you X amount of dollars, or we make you X amount of dollars, we get a percentage of that. If you're not the person, like the guy, if you're not that guy, then they will just say no.
Right.
This is something the gurus do not ever tell you about. If the prospect does not believe that you are the number one person to solve their problem, they will never pay you a value-based fee, because they will look at someone else who looks like they can do the exact same thing you can do and do it cheaper, or will just charge them a fee so they'll know exactly how much they're paying.
Yeah.
It may be high, like they may pay a high fee to that other guy, but they'll do it because they know exactly how much it's going to cost them and they can plan for that. But with a performance thing, it makes it a little harder for them to plan for. And why should I give you a percentage? Like, our sales team's still going to have to close this. Our other people are going to have to do all this work. Why would we pay you this extra amount? Because that's what value-based pricing really comes down to.
Yeah.
Is I get a cut of the extra value that I bring to you.
Yeah.
Most people don't want to pay that.
It's basically like starting a partnership with the client as well. And
Yes.
as you say, you need to be very well positioned, and you have to be the authority as well within that space. But also, one thing that I have thought about these two models is, well, then you need to have like a very trustworthy relationship with the clients,
Yes.
and them with you as well, because it is high risk as well. It is very risky too, because I don't know, at least in my mind, it's like, well, of course you can craft the actual contract, but if that contract goes awry, then maybe you need to take that client to court, and all of these different problems as well that may happen. And I don't know, at least for me, that it sounds very, very sexy, but it sounds very difficult to implement as well.
It is. It is incredibly difficult. And that's why I came up with my particular pricing guide, which is charge what you would be happy to receive to do the work, and your client is eager to pay it.
Right.
That is literally the best price you can ever get in services.
Hmm.
The one that you're happy to receive and your client is eager to pay. If you can find that number, then you've got the best business, because you're going to be happy doing what you do, and your client isn't going to fight you over it. Because in a lot of value-based and performance-based, they fight you over it. I've got a client right now who's in lead gen, and he's only partially into lead gen, and that's kind of a problem, but another story. But he's in lead generation. And every month when they're talking to their clients, account management's talking to clients, asking about the leads, trying to figure out, the quality of the leads and developing them. the client always disputes a percentage of all leads.
Right.
Always.
Yeah.
Your lead sucked. This lead didn't convert and it was your fault, so I am not going to pay for that lead. Like it just, they weren't the right quality. They weren't this, they weren't that other thing.
They're trying to get off the hook.
And yeah, they're just trying not to pay for it.
Right.
Because, well, that lead did not turn into a client, and they try not to pay for the lead. Happens all the time. And that's why, like in lead generation or any kind of performance-based business, is that you need to go 100% into that business. You can't be into it partially, because it's always going to come with this conflict between you and the client. It's always going to be built into the business model, where they don't want to pay it because it didn't turn into what they wanted, and you want them to pay it because you did what you said you were going to do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so if you have a performance-based business, go 100% into it. No other services that do not include performance. It's 100% that business. Go fully all the way to the end to make sure that the client is landing all their, as many of those leads or whatever the service is as possible, so that they have less reason to dispute it. So you help them all the way to the end, the logical end of whatever your service is. Then you will have very happy clients who will still dispute everything that you do. I am 100% biased against the performance-based model.
Yeah.
But the people that I know who have done this and done it really well, like went full into it, no hedging, 100% performance, have built businesses in the tens of millions. Met several who had $50 and $60 million businesses that were performance-based only.
Right.
Made 50 to 60 million a year every year.
Wow. Beautiful.
But you have to go 100% into it.
Right.
Yes.
So Tim, with this, well, we've gone through maybe all of the pricing, well, not all of the pricing models, but enough for us to have this covered. But also, I think also one thing that boils down to is essentially your client stacking teaching. With my experience coming from Upwork and changing my hourly rate and, switching from being a freelancer to an agency owner, client stacking and has really helped me to actually find my price.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I recommend it, because people pick a price based on their self-worth. I've seen this for 20 years. People look around the market and they judge a price by how they feel. How does this price make me feel? Not, will my client pay it?
Right.
Not, is this the best price to cover all my costs and make a profit? Those things justify the price afterwards. The price that they pick, they justify it after the fact. They go, okay, here's my price, and then here's all the reasons why I picked this price to make me feel like I made a rational decision.
Yeah.
When in reality, you looked at the world and said, oh, this makes me feel this way.
Yeah.
And I am only picking this price because of how I feel. And so sometimes, and this is not always a bad thing, because sometimes people have a very high self-worth and they pick a very high price. It's right out, like, obviously I'm going to charge top of the market because I know my value. Like, there are a small percentage of people in the world who do behave like that.
Yeah.
But 99.99 something percent of everybody else, they pick a price that is low because they feel like that's what they're worth.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have the confidence to really pick the price that's appropriate for the type of client that you're going after, the type of service that you're providing, if you don't have the confidence, then a client stack is one of the best ways to get there.
Yes.
It's like, okay, I just don't have the confidence that I can really deliver on this. Okay, great. Pick what you think you can do and get some proof. Get some proof that you know what you're doing. So proof for yourself. I understand what I'm capable of delivering for a client. And you're probably not going to make any money for those first 4 clients, that first stack. But then you've got proof that you're capable of doing the work. Now, on the next stack, just charge 25% more. The next 4 clients, just 25% more than the first 4 clients. Mm-hmm. And then the next stack, just charge 25% above the other one. You do that 4 times, and you have more than doubled your rate. And you don't have to do it 4 clients, so 16 clients. You don't have to wait 16 clients. But if you feel that your confidence is not strong enough, just get the experience, but then just raise the rate just enough. A friend of mine, he says, do it 25% on the next client, 25% on the client after that, 25% on the client after that. If you are confident that and you've got a good pipeline of prospects, then do that.
Yeah.
Just like go through it really fast. But if you feel that you're not strong enough yet, that you're not confident enough, then do a stack of 4 at one rate, add 25%, do another stack, then add 25%, do another stack. Just do that until you find the price that you're happy to work at and your clients are eager to pay. That's it.
And with that, we have a wrap. This was a great episode. Thank you, Tim, for all of your knowledge again. And we'll see you in the next one.